And let's just settle from our various activities we've come in from and connect with each other. And then let's bow. And then let's just do a little bit of, whoop.
I have one more request, Hilda. Is it possible for you to come closer to the camera?
I think the monitor has to come closer to me. I get you all closer.
Better, thank you.
Great.
Ja, ist das gut? Okay.
It's not good, it's bitter.
Sehr gut.
Oh.
Let's practice, actually, instead of any more adjustments. Let's practice. So go ahead and mute your microphone. And just feel the transition into practice. I'm big about transitions. I really think transitions are important for mindfulness. So just feel the transition in before we even begin. And then, what is our intention? Our intention is to connect with ourselves. That's what this is about. So we go in holding that intention. And then we'll just move through our natural communication system as we have, starting with our body. And that sense of touch. Touch is such a good place to begin. Touch is like the soil out of which mindfulness grows. So just feel touch across the body. Touch on the outside, on the skin. The hands, the face, the neck. And all of where our clothes are touching the skin. We humans have this sense of intimacy with touch, but that intimacy is always there. We're always being touched by the air, by our clothes. We're connected through touch. And then inside, deep down to the bones, to the organs, inside our skull. We don't have to name it, what we're feeling. We don't have to picture any diagrams of anatomy. We just feel. There's no diagrams for the feelings that we have. Sensations of touch inside. And let's bring in sound. Sound of my voice, sound in the room, sound coming through the walls. Maybe there's even just a sound deep inside your ears. And seeing, colors, shadows and light, reflections, lines, curves. Just relax your eyes. You have vision all the way out to the sides and above and below, even though you're looking in a particular direction. But just relax and let that whole field softly come in. And then a bit of smell or taste. Just check. Bring your mindfulness to smell and taste. See if there's anything. If there's nothing, bring your awareness to nothing. What does nothing smell like, taste like? And then from this ground of the body, we come to our emotions, tender heart. You take a deep breath and just let it out. Just soften. And just like with our eyes or with our sense of touch, there might not be any names for the emotions that are rising up. They might be very subtle. Or maybe they're a mix of emotions that's unique. Are they staying the same? Are they changing? And then let's come to the open mind. What is the situation of the open mind in this present moment? Many thoughts, only a few thoughts, speedy thoughts, slow thoughts. No thoughts, maybe for a moment even. What happens when there's no thought? Maybe the mind is thinking about thinking or thinking about what I'm saying. That's fine. Just look at that. Just look at that. So let's bring all of that together. Awake body, touch, hearing, seeing, smell, taste. Tender heart, that emotional mix. Open mind. Okay. And then we'll transition out. So we've transitioned in, we'll feel the transition out. Notice whatever we notice coming out. So I want to update everybody on Trevor. I had a conversation with Trevor. I had a good conversation with Trevor. I found out more about what was going on there, and which had to do with Trevor got really excited and wanted to support Susan's work during this difficult time of her illness, but he overbooked himself. And he didn't do a great job with communicating about that. And so as we talked about it, it became clear that he wasn't going to be able to commit properly to this course. And he actually suggested he said, maybe I made a mistake and I need to not say that I'm going to show up. And I said, that seems wise at this point. And so what he said, though, is he said, I still do want to support this work. He said, would it be possible for me to just watch the recordings and not really participate in the full class? He's like, I do want my money to support Susan's work during this difficult time for her. And I thought about that. I said, well, let me check in with everybody. And so Trevor is he actually offered, he said, if people are worried about me watching the videos, he said, I'm a trained therapist. I deal with confidentiality all the time, and I won't repeat anything that I hear in the videos to anybody else. So that was one aspect of that, and I want to have a little discussion about that. And then the further issue was, and I said, yeah, I think if that was the case, he would have access to the course forums, so he could post, a question. I watched this video and something came up, and I'm curious what others think about this. And then the issue comes up about whether he would be able to come to the once a month green zone, and whether that would feel proper or improper to everybody. So I'd like to open it up and just see what people have to say, see how people feel. Yeah, Mikola.
My first reaction was, at least I want to get to know him once. So I want him once to be on these Thursday gatherings and to see him and to get more the feeling.
Information. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear
that. Then that's fine for me.
Okay, sure. Other thoughts?
Sorry, Daryl. I think that's a really good idea, because because I think I'm not comfortable with you asking questions on his behalf and playing middleman. I would prefer if he asked the questions himself and he heard the responses himself, and we were able to actually have a dialogue about the best way to do this. So I think Mikhaila's idea is really, really good, and just find out a time that he can do it, and whenever it works, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Others?
Well,
yeah, Yoka.
For me, yeah, the thought also came, if he can't schedule us in so well, how can he be possible? How can he then schedule himself half in? So that's actually what he is intending to do, to come half of the time. So sometimes once in a month. And it feels a bit weird because he misses the course actually. So yeah, well, then he can watch the videos, but when he has no time to be here, how can he have time to the videos? So I'm a bit hesitant actually about this whole idea of somebody participating half.
Sure. Yeah. Daryl, did you have a comment? Yeah.
Yes, I have felt the same as Nicola. Not sure that's how you pronounce your name. That yes, definitely. Who is he? Who is this person? Just so we actually our mind can actually go to who he is.
Sure. Yeah, get to meet him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Instead of all of a sudden at one of the gatherings he appears, you know, that would be double
Sure.
stuff. So we've already done the initial, having already done the initial, you know, connection. Important.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Linda.
For me, it would be really fine if he just watched the videos. I think if he wants to do this, it's he has this intention to learn about the work. He's motivated, he lacks time. But if he can do it in this way, I think that would be great. And that's fine by me. Joining our monthly green zones, I find that might be harder because then we're going in this process together, and I feel like I don't know enough about green zones in how it works, but I know from group dynamic, I've got this idea that it might change a bit. And I don't know whether that's good or bad, but we're building something up, and it would be a pity. Yeah, and I don't know how to phrase this the right way, because it's not someone dragging you down or none of those negative comments, but it's also enriching to have someone new in your group. But yeah, I can't find the right words, but I hope you get the meaning, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, other comments or thoughts? Hilda?
Well, I know from Karuna training that we needed some rounds to constitute as a group. And I consider our come togethers, this is now the 5th time, as not going towards group constitution, because we always have to discuss whether Trevor will come or steps in or can be part of the introductory round and so forth. And I feel not good with this. And also, just watching the videos, I feel a bit like in a very anonymous space, like Versuchskaninchen, we say in German. This is a rabbit you make your exercises with. What is the English word for that?
Say it again about exercises. What is it?
Well, let me shortly check. I feel a bit like a Versuchskaninchen, being watched by somebody I do not know at all.
Yeah, I think proefkonijn in Dutch.
Yeah,
and how to say it in English, like a rabbit you use in the laboratory to do tests on.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Sure. Experimental subject.
Yeah.
Guinea pig. I feel like a guinea pig.
What is it, Diner?
It is guinea pig.
Guinea pig. I think a guinea pig. You've
Guinea
got the
pig.
word.
Yeah, guinea pig. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
Yes. And in our green zone rounds, I cannot visualize him either, because we missed him already 5 times.
Right.
And why not to postpone the whole advanced course for a later future round? But
Right.
I really want to build up with you a container, having a container in which this green zone work can take place. And I feel not safe. And I really want this course that we all together build up an environment of safety to further dive into what is mindful communication and especially our issues with that.
No.
So I'm not very in favor for that.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Hilda. Robert.
There's one thing that I'm experiencing with this whole thing, and I'm actually irritated with him. I'm not irritated with him that he didn't turn up, but what I'm irritated with is that he never communicated with us. He never said, "Oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to be here," and you know, each week we would wait for him, expecting him to be here. And that lack of communication I found really disrespectful. And so I have a kind of a built-in prejudice against him just because of that. And he would have to work hard to undo that.
Sure. Sure. And I really hear what people are saying here. I think this is a very important we first conversation. And I'll just say, you know, it was interesting for me because I had to ask him, I said, what happened? What happened? We didn't do a lot of niceties before what happened? And it was interesting because, you know, we started the course later. He was also he had two other things that happened on Thursday mornings. And because we started later, he would have been able to be here at the start and then had a few things that would have interfered. And it may have been a different situation had we started when we originally said we were going to start. So I share a bit of the responsibility for that. He also then didn't understand that we had class on Thanksgiving. That was part of why he didn't, after the multiple delays, then he didn't show up on Thanksgiving. He actually didn't realize we had class then. And that doesn't erase anything anybody's talking about, but I feel for my part, I should add that in. Let's see, Hilda, I see a hand there.
Greg, I have also a feeling that Trevor, for some reason, is important for you, and I wanted to ask you whether we miss maybe something.
Actually, I don't have a strong feeling. I actually, you know, I think in my conversation with him, I wondered whether it was just not the right fit right now. And then when he brought that up, it seemed like, okay, great, he can't come. You know, rather than trying to join him in at this point, and then that's complicated. And then when he brought up the idea of just watching the videos, that was a possibility I hadn't even considered. And I did feel, you know, his genuine feeling, like he really does love Susan. And he's a Karuna training graduate as well, and he's studied with her, and he really appreciated her, and he really does feel like this work is extremely important. He doesn't know enough about it yet, but he's excited to really delve in. So I did feel his goodwill, like he really has goodwill. But he's also, you know, aware that he's not going to be able to really participate fully. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. I feel like this is the way to figure this out together. Linda.
Something Hilda said resonated with me, that we're talking a lot about Trevor. And I think, if I understood you correctly, that we're not moving on with our group process. But for me, it's also, I still enjoy these sessions, but I'm also looking at the course program, and I'm like the students who's ready to dive into some more material. And we're talking a lot about him. So in a way, you can see it as an exercise, but in a way, I also felt, yeah, it really resonated, and I thought, Trevor, I want to do him justice, because I think there's definitely goodwill, but maybe you can figure something else out with something else that's more, and you've got these beautiful films or whatever, that you can have him, or I don't know, but that we can move on with our program, because also I was missing a bit, and that's off topic in a way, connected, but the structure we're going through, and maybe that's me being, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, I guess I see a thumbs up from Daryl on my screen. So do we feel as a group that do we want to invite Trevor in, for one thing, to get to know him and then see if we want to offer him the videos? Or do we feel like we just feel like it's time to put it off and ask him to come back a different time? Yeah, Linda.
If I hear what everybody said, then I think we should move on with our group and our course. And he needs to find, and you guys need to find a different solution, maybe next, or
Yeah, okay. Is everybody in agreement on that?
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. Yeah, the
Okay.
same.
I see nodding heads. Robert?
Yeah. He can't commit himself to this program, and that doesn't feel well for me.
Sure.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
Also, if he coming in again is also going to be another, Trevor moment in our course.
That's true. That's true. All right. Okay. I think we've come to an agreement. And I think we're done with this discussion. And I think we can move on now, right? Great. Thank you all so much. I really, I'm glad. I'm in a way, like, I'm both. I'm sorry in a way that we've spent a lot of time on this, because I do appreciate the structure that we are going to move through. On the flip side, there's some transmission here, I think, of working together to come up with solutions that make the most sense for everybody. And I think that sets a good foundation going forward. So let's move forward, eh? Okay, fantastic. So we're going to do something today that actually will be, there will be a lot of discussion today. And what I want to do is to have us watch a video together. This is a video I was actually going to have us watch last time. And I'm going to set this up ahead of time by saying it's not everybody's favorite video. And Hilda and I have had many discussions about this, but actually I've had discussions about this with other students as well. In fact, we're gonna really discuss this in our teacher training as well, because somebody in the teacher training really doesn't like this video either. And this is from an experiment. It's a very famous experiment in child psychology, and it's called the Stillface experiment.
I've seen it so much already.
You've seen it so much, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have too. I've probably seen it 150 times. But we're going to utilize it in a particular way today to highlight what the 3 lights actually mean. And so I really want to say that if you have seen it before, and even if you've seen it from us before, it's actually useful. Because I think and the reason is we use the still face as a central metaphor. It's a very useful central metaphor. for what happens when we get cut off in communication and what happens when we encounter a red light. Now the background is that not everybody likes this video because they feel like they don't really like this kind of experimentation that involves children. And I just want to say that I want to leave lots of room for that. And I do have a different view of that. Susan and I have had many conversations about this. She has a different view of that in this particular case, not about experimenting with children, but in this particular case, because of the view that we hold around it, that, you know, we don't think this is the kind of experiment that causes lasting harm, and we can have a whole conversation about that. But you are free to hold whatever view you have, and that's important as well. So I'm not trying to impose this view upon you in any way. And I still think it will be useful to have a conversation about. So let us watch the video, and then we'll have a conversation about why we watch the video and how it relates to the 3 lights. Okay, so let me share this. Make sure I get the sound on. Okay. And if you can't hear, just turn on your microphone and let me know that you can't hear.
This young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the Stillface experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation.
Okay, before we talk about that, let's just sit for a moment, just feel. Just contemplate what you just saw. You know, and like we did earlier, connect with your body and your heart and your mind. See what's coming up. And let's just check in and just get some basic reactions before we go on further. And some of you have seen this many, many, many times. Some of you, this might be the first time. What did you notice? What did you notice coming up in yourself? So many hands going up. Yoga.
Oh, well, for me, this is so much suffering. Although I know that there would not be lasting damage because that was too short, but I feel the suffering of all the children for who it's not only 2 minutes that they can't connect with their parents and are neglected and have depressive mothers or mothers who have no attention for them. And so I feel enormous pain, actually. Not so much for this child only, but for all the children who has this disconnection. That's my first.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why I cannot see it.
Absolutely. Okay, who else had hands up? Linda?
I also noticed that I resonated with the video when they were playing happy. I also felt happy, and I felt physically averse when I saw the connection being broken. And I was thinking, oh, this is what happens so often. I've seen it in my own life. I think it's and and it happens all around. And also how important it is, how important connection is for people. And like you want to do everything, at least as a baby, you want to do everything for it. But I think when we're adults, often it's still one of the things we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Daryl, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, there's a lot. Everything you guys just said as well. But sitting with this, my mind kind of went a bit further. It was like, so absolutely, how we bounce around in the world, like how we are picking up and how we can actually be agent of connection. But then the other thing that came up is like being manipulated. So having somebody who is connecting with you or connecting, and so our immediate impulse would be, you know, responding as such. But yeah, I guess discern. It's it's an interesting thing. I'm not quite sure how to really articulate it, but because it was a flash of being being drawn in to I guess somebody who's trying to, you know, take advantage or something.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. It was just a impulse.
Sure. I think that's very important, like the mindless heart pattern of just wanting to connect at all costs.
Yeah, because then I also saw that you're actually not completely open, because a lot of messages you could read and detect, oh, wait a second. You know, there's a quality you can pick up on.
Right.
You know? Yeah, interesting.
Great. Nicola, I'm just going to keep saying your name wrong, and I in my American way.
It's fine.
Right.
I realized that I know this video from the Green Zone,
Right.
and I don't like it. And I noticed that I format to be against it, and that I switch into at least yellow or red zone, because I think I start thinking about why are people doing these experiments with children who are not asked if they want to be part of such an experiment. I mean, you could do experiments with adults also, because if you treat an adult in an unfriendly way, he will be unhappy as well. And so I think it's very painful to now, I mean, it's not, I see it's painful, but it's also a kind of, there are so many things to using children for something that is very important. Of course, it is very important, but still you use them. And then there is this interesting ambivalence to saying, I think I'm really into this green zone thing. It's really, yeah. And then it's a kind of embarrassing that we use this example that I'm not feeling good with. So this is, but it's as a process, it's interesting to realize what's happening with me.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Any other comment? Hilda, yeah.
During the film, I Googled Dr. Tronick, and I saw that this experiment took place in 1975. So the baby today should be 45 years old. And I would very much like to know how she feels. And I know also from the 70s, we did so many experiments going beyond own borders and also harming ourselves by doing so. Yeah. So in this context, I'm more friendly with the film, which, by the way, as you know, I do not very much like. But given that this took place in the 1970s, and we all sacrificed a bit by going beyond in order to overcome what has happened before with this World War thing and all this space sucking environments. So now I'm a bit more calmer due to the information that it took place in the 1970s. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true, right? I mean, you think of so many of those very famous experiments that happened in the 60s and 70s that, you know, the prison experiments, you know, where they simulated a prison situation with college students, and of course they ended up treating each other horribly and all of this stuff. Or, you know, I remember, you know, there was the one where they told half the kids that they were inferior and the other, you know what I mean? Like all those things, right? Absolutely. Lots of craziness. Robert.
So this was really uncomfortable. Not for the reason, yes, partly for the reasons that everybody's talking about, but I just want to go a little bit personal for a second. So this woman approached me online a while ago, not long ago, 10 days ago, so it's very fresh. And I got a communication from her yesterday. It was really clear that she didn't understand a whole lot about who I was. And so I thought about this issue of not being seen. And when this thing came up, it was almost like I don't think I'd ever really got that the issue of not being seen. And when that woman went blank, it was like, oh my God, that's my mother. In my entire life, I do not ever remember my mother playing with me in the way this mother played with her child. Ever, 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 ever. So it was like, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful, look at this mother, look what she's doing. Like, that's interesting that mothers do things like this. Of course, you know, I also had kids and my wife was really good with the kids and so was I. But still, looking at this from this perspective, it was a real shock. And it was like, I'm sorry, I'm almost not very coherent here.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Robert. I mean, that's that's it. Like I'll say in terms of and maybe this is a good time, unless there's any further urgent comments, a good time to kind of, okay, I'm going to try and put this into a context around the three lights, is that for us, it's a situation, this artificial situation, right? This is an experiment. This mother is not acting the way that she normally would. She's actually being asked to do something entirely artificial. And, you know, I bring this up when I use this video, but it's like, you know, you can see it. If you watch carefully, you can see it in her face, particularly when the baby starts to cry. You can see this tension. She's trying to stay still, but she's just can't do it because she's having real emotions underneath. But this artificial constraint is putting her into this sort of almost inhuman state for this 2 minutes. And then as soon as the constraint is lifted, she goes back into a more comfortable mode for her. And this is why, in a way, almost like what's painful about this is actually exactly why we utilize it, is because this kind of artificiality that shuts us down and that keeps us from connecting is sadly extremely common. And it's where we can criticize the psychological establishment and the use of children and experimentation. I get that. I support that conversation. I think that does need to happen. I think there has been extremely damaging things done in those contexts. But I also want to point out, like, this idea of artificially suppressing our natural instinct to connect with each other is coming from a million different directions, outside us and inside us. And then the baby's response is how we all feel, whether we're a child or an adult. We all feel that. We all know that exact moment when you get cut off. And the baby goes through everything that we go through. It's no different. We have lots of fancy concepts that we put on top because we're adults. but we don't feel any different than that baby, you know? And the baby, there's that attempt to connect, like, you know, wait a minute, what just happened? You were right there. I know you were right there, Mom. And then suddenly you're not there. And that longing, that like, and that description, the baby's like trying to do all the things that well, like, this is how we connect, is I point to things and we talk about it, or I reach out to you. And then there's a natural moment of connection that happens. And this artificial constraint is keeping this entirely human process from functioning. And the result of that is suffering, real, powerful suffering. And, you know, this situation and this went on for 2 minutes, but like Robert was bringing up, like 2 minutes is nothing compared to, oh my goodness, like in our lives as we go through 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 6 hours, whatever, a week, a month. You know, if you've been in that situation, I think of situations I've been in like that. And even situations, you know, with close people or family or whatever, where it's day after day. And you just think, oh my God, how can I go through this? And the tendency to want to shut down is so overwhelming in that situation. It's such a powerful pressure. Like, I just need to shut down. So what am I going to shut down into? I'm going to shut down into, you know, superiority or rage. I'm going to shut down into manipulation, try and manipulate, getting at least some perks out of a painful situation. I'm going to shut down into, you know, blankness, you know, taking over the situation and trying to control it, all these different flavors that we know of. So it is, this Stillface, which is, in a way, the reason why we chose this one, right? It could be an angry mother. It could be a mother who's manipulating really actively or whatever. That would have, in a way, it would have the same effect, but in some ways the Stillface is kind of the central theme. Just being cut off. Like, that alone is so painful. And then you add on some flavors, different flavors of being shut down. So let's just review this real quick here. Let me pull up my slides. Okay, there we go. So the idea of our three lights, you know, we get into a misunderstanding sometimes about the three lights, like it's morality, you know, or the green light is when you're being good and you're being kind and you're listening and you're doing all the things you should do and blah, blah, blah. But actually the green light is very basic. It just means you're attuned to each other. And it's not about doing what you should do or being morally good or anything like that. It's just, you're hooked in. You know, like I can't remember if it was Linda or Daryl who said this, you know, you felt everything you were watching as it was happening. That's attunement, actually. You can feel in real time what this other person's experience is. Even if you're confused by what you feel something. And so this issue of, you know, even like morality or whatever is sort of secondary. What comes first is a direct experience of each other. And then if somebody hurts, you hurt. You know, they talk about mirror neurons in the brain or whatever. Some way that we are actually built as social creatures to feel each other. And so, and of course, you know, mothers and babies, parents and children, this is a deep, deep part of ourself to be able to feel each other. Because you want to care for your child, you want to care for your baby. You want to make sure your baby things are going okay. I think of a story, actually just for a moment, I just think of a story my mother tells. And I guess I was probably 6 months old or something. I couldn't talk. And I was crying and crying and crying, and she couldn't figure out what was going on for the longest time. She finally figured out one of the pins in holding my diapers together had come undone, and it was actually poking me. You know, and it just took her a long time. She was trying everything, and food and this and that and hugs, and, you know, it's like, you know, and, you know, there was no fault in hers. She just, how would you know, you know, mostly they don't come open like that. But there was that overwhelming impulse to find out what is happening. Why is this child unhappy? How can we fix this situation? I mean, that is deep human stuff right there. Without that, we would not be here as a species. So it's a really good part of how we're built. And so to jump back in here, you know, we can rely on attunement as a very positive part of ourself and a very natural part of ourself. So here we're talking about when we're talking about the red light here, we're talking about the mother specifically. And we're talking about the mother because she's being asked to disattune. So now the natural conversation that happens even at the level of your face is being blocked. The flow is blocked. And so this natural dance back and forth cannot happen. And so then the result for the baby is the yellow light. So when we're talking here with the yellow light, we're talking about the baby specifically. And the yellow light is not just a feeling of distress, anxiety, you know, overwhelm, suffering, all of these things. But it is very specifically a feeling that maybe there's something wrong with me. This is really where we go, where we attack ourselves. Now, the baby doesn't have any words for that. The baby doesn't have any concepts for that. But it's just a feeling of like, why isn't mom reaching out for me? This is what mom does. Mom reaches out for me. And then it's not happening. Now, if we ended there, that would be an extremely depressing and sad story. You'd say, okay, and then there's the world, right? And, you know, I think honestly, a lot of psychology does sort of end there. It says, well, boy, look at that. Now we're in a bad situation. Now, from the perspective of contemplative psychology, and you know, and mindful communications adoption of that, this isn't a frozen pattern. This isn't something that's put down forever. It's a tendency, and it can make a strong tendency, and it can make a strong momentum within ourselves. But, oops, come on, computer. There we go. There's a fourth part to this process, which is restoration. So this is the idea that by reconnecting And that attunement being hooked in again and feeling that connection and presence and even protection again allows us to investigate what just happened. You know, we first, when the restoration happens, there's a period of having to actually digest that process, right? It's not a, with a baby, it's pretty instantaneous. Babies are incredibly flexible. But for us adults, we're much slower. This is a much slower process for us. You know, the restoration happens and okay, this is gonna take a minute. This is gonna take a day. This is gonna take a week, or this is gonna take a month, or whatever it's gonna take. Or, you know, restoration once is not enough. I need multiple points of restoration before I start to feel able to connect and open up. And so then the second aspect of this is the idea that the restoration may not happen with the person with whom you had the break. You know, it's not always the case that you're going to go back to that person who communication was cut off with and be able to connect. That just doesn't always happen in life. We know that. That's obvious. For whatever reason, they're not available. They don't want to. They're still in that same pattern. You know, they're no longer on the planet. For whatever reason, we can't do it with them. So then the question is, how do we do that? How do we provide that sense of restoration and reconnection? So this gets back to our green zone. Why we're doing green zones. What is this even about? You say, well, it's good. It's good to get together with people and discuss things or whatever. Yes, that's true. That's always, you know, that can be a great thing. But very specifically, what we are trying to do here is to provide a space where that attunement is all around us. And it's not perfect, whatever. We're not, you know, we're human beings. We're not always going to be attuned. There'll be interruptions and there'll be distractions and, you know, various things, misunderstandings, of course, in a green zone. But the idea is that we could come into this space knowing that the aim is to try to attune. The people are doing their best. And within that atmosphere of a green zone, we can begin, maybe for the first time in some situations, to touch on the yellow light feeling. That in some ways, if it's unexamined, that yellow light is always driving us towards the red. You know, there's something wrong with me. God, I'm just so, what's wrong with me? I'm such a blah, blah, blah. I'm this, I'm that. And, that self-attack. That self-attack is so painful, and it's so, we are so unprotected from that, since it's inside us. We're so unprotected from that that we long to shut down. Just, you know, doctor, just shoot me up with something that knocks me out. That's what I want. I just want to be, I'm in so much pain, I just want to be knocked out. And the doctor is our own, you know, red light training. The doctor says, great, listen, you can go into rage. Boom, you won't feel any of that self-attack. You know, you can try to manipulate somebody into thinking you're the sexiest person in the room, whoever they are, it doesn't really matter who they are, just find somebody. And boom, that'll be so distracting. You know, you just flop down on the couch and turn on mindless television and just dissolve. And that can be, that dissolving, that kind of like going blank can take over everything. And then you won't have to encounter this self-attack. And it's, you know, when you think about it, it's kind of natural. Like it's very understandable that we do this. And I don't know about you, but I know that feeling. I know that feeling. It's so seductive. It's like, just come on, just take one little shot. It's like an addiction. Just take one little shot and this night will be so much better. I can take all this anger that's coming to me, from me, and I can just fire it back out. I can just shoot it out, and all of my attention, all of my awareness will go out, away from this attack. Oh, works like a charm. And then what happens is, if I shoot it out over that direction, it generally causes chaos. And that chaos is even more involving. It's even more distracting. You know what I mean? How can I will never have to come back to being harsh with myself. Because now this person's pissed off at me and I'm pissed off at them. We're firing bullets back and forth. And there's a war, and, you know, I've got to enlist people on my side so we can go attack this person, take down their reputation or whatever, and blah, 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 you know, on and on and on and on, right? And the next thing you know, it's 10 years later. And you never have to come back to this. But then the problem is, you never come back to this. And when we don't come back to this, we don't find out that this was wrong at the start. I was never fundamentally wrong or broken. There isn't anything fundamentally wrong with me. It's not the case. Even if I have flaws, even if I've done things that are not so great at times, even if I fall into patterns that are negative, there's nothing fundamentally wrong. In fact, those are mostly built out of the dramas from trying to get away from this feeling. So by avoiding this feeling, I've actually led myself in a destructive direction. Coming back to this feeling with the support of a green zone all around me, the goodness, the richness, the kind of, naturalness, which is why we use the image of the garden on that one slide, right? The naturalness all around me, soothing me, allowing me to come back, touch that feeling of the yellow light and say, this yellow light is built out of nothing. This is built literally out of nothing. But I need support to do that. I need support. So the green zone is social. So your literal green zones in this class are social. You can do this with other people. And, that's a formal green zone. But of course, you can do this in your life. You might do this with a good friend. You might do this with in your primary relationship, or with your kids, or with your neighbor. It doesn't matter. I've told this story before about being on a bus. I was on a bus for several days. This is back in the 90s when I was going to graduate school, and my car broke at the last minute and I had to get there quickly. So I jumped on a bus, which was a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea because the buses here, they make you get off every 2 hours, even all through the night and everything. So I was completely sleep deprived. I got to graduate school worse than any flight I've ever been on in terms of my sleep schedule being mixed up. But I met this young man on the bus Justin is his name. And he was sitting next to me. He was 17 years old. And he had been kicked out of his house by his parents. And he was traveling across the entire United States from the West Coast to the East Coast to move in with his girlfriend. And his girlfriend was, so he was 17, his girlfriend was 35 years old. And she actually had 3 children, including a 14-year-old. And he was on a lot of medication for anxiety, to the point where he was actually physically shaking. And he also had almost no food. He had like, he brought like 3 sandwiches for a 3.5-day bus ride. And he had no money. And we just talked. He told me this whole story of what was going on with him and how he was a little bit worried because his girlfriend's ex-husband had recently taken a gun and shot out the tires of her car. So he was a little nervous to show up in this situation. And he really, really wanted to be a poet. That was his kind of inner desire, was to really become a poet. And we just talked for about a day and a half before I got off. He was still going to have to go another day to the East Coast. And I think about him all the time. I still think about him all the time, and just his face and his voice and kind of innocence he had at the time. And, you know, just to be there with each other in a very simple way, right? Green zones can be social. And then green zones can be personal. So they can just be your meditation practice. They can be your journaling. They can be whatever it is that allows you to reconnect. Ice skating, that doesn't matter, really doesn't matter. Cooking, spending time with animals, whatever it is, that then I get back to myself so I could maybe touch that yellow light experience a little bit, to find out it's not real, to find out I'm not bad. That's this is kind of the big picture view. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And that's why I brought up the problematic video today, and thank you for indulging me. And I really do appreciate everybody's comments around that. We only have about 8 minutes left. I want to open it up, see what there is to say. And I will say next time we're going to do a practice around this, around the yellow light experience. Linda.
I just sort of had a light bulb moment. I've got a lot of things with self-attack. Didn't think so, but it's really an issue. And I understand it now. I sort of had this light bulb moment that the green zone is not necessarily just examining the yellow light, what is going on, this and that, but connecting with something deeper. And maybe it's not always exclusive, but connecting with something else by ice skating, or connecting with someone else, or yeah, I see you nodding,
Yeah.
so I think maybe
Yeah.
I understand it correctly. And I was also intrigued by what toxic reflection was on one of the sheets, what toxic reflection is.
Yeah, toxic reflection. And we'll get into this more and more when we talk about the red light. But toxic reflection is, yeah, maybe you are bad, and maybe you should never go back there and look at that. You know, like we all know we're kind of bad. And so we should stay in rage. We should tune out. We have to manipulate each other. That's the way the world works. You know, it's a crappy world and we're all kind of crappy people, and there's nothing good here. So we just listen. The best you can do is to try to get as much money as you can, or, you know, to try and get people to say good things about you, no matter what it takes. That's the toxic reflection. You know, and when it really gets down to it, don't even ask what my opinion is of you, because I'm gonna have to be honest and tell you that you're not good. So then it's better to just come my direction, come into the red zone, so to speak, where the toxic reflection becomes a kind of morality. And needless to say, this is a terrible way to live. It's a really terrible way to live. I'm not exaggerating when I say this is what is destroying our world, is the toxic reflection. Sorry, that's super heavy. How's everybody doing? I mean, the good news of this, the flip side of the good news of this is the green zone it allows us to get back and see that this is all fake. You know, this is all fake. And you could say, well, it's fake. They're making a fake thing. It's like, no, that's too simplistic. We're all caught up in this fake thing. Even the people who are manipulating us or whatever, are trying to pull us into the red light, they themselves are lost in this. It's really a sad situation. But the good news is that it's not real. We aren't fundamentally bad. That's what's the mistake. And we can get back to ourselves. There's no question of this. Yeah, Daryl.
Yeah, so I'm loving all of this. I'm familiar with this through the Progoff. I'm not sure if anyone knows the Arab Progoff journaling, which is kind of a Jung. He was a student at one point, or contemporary of Jung. Anyway, so it's been really profound for me. And so I have found this in within myself, like in my own personal green space. And I find other people, this is why I'm actually interested in this program, is other people, I just feel, you know, so many people are caught in their own things. And like how to deal with someone who actually is unaware they're caught and they're living in this mode. And like, how can you have like a true, genuine connection? It sounds on a deep level, I mean. So this has always been very curious for me. So how to be really genuine when the other person, I think I'm just speaking in general terms here. It's like, it's always very, situations are always open for, you know, connection. But anyways, this is something I'm going to be definitely exploring further. It's just an open statement, comment.
Thank you. Oops. Yeah, Hilda. Oops, you're still muted, Hilda.
I have a technical question. Tomorrow we will have our first tiny group, Daryl, and Linda cannot make it, and Trevor is not in anymore, meaning that we will have a one-to-one tomorrow, right? Yeah. And how do we connect? Do we use the same Zoom link as this one for today?
That's a good question. That's a good question. What time is your group at?
Our group is at 5 p.m. Switzerland time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
11 Eastern.
Yeah, so I would say, oh wait, it's 11 Eastern. Oh. You can use this Zoom link if you would like.
It's a sec. You know what?
Oh.
It's because there's only 2 people. They can go as long as they want. Just one of you create a Zoom link.
Oh, that's true. In
You don't have to
Zoom.
worry about. It's only when there's more than 2 people that you can't go more than 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's a
So
good point.
just decide who's going to send the link and just link up that way.
Ah, this is new to me. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, you know, I think of Hilda, your comment about the refreshment of having the Zoom meeting cut off and then having to go back in, and you know, even with the free Zoom account, it's not so terrible, as long as you know it's going to happen. It's not a shock.
So Daryl, I will send you the Zoom link then.
Sure. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just checking in. So this is your first meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the assignment still applies. Okay, fantastic. Well, this is in a way, this is our real start. You know, we've gone through all the technical stuff, all the logistics, and you know, now we're really heading out on this journey together. It's good to be here with you all. Let's go ahead and feel. And bow. Okay, take good care. See you next week. Talk to you soon.